Good morning. I will call this Tuesday, January 9th, 2018 regular meeting of the Board of Lane County Commissioners to order. Welcome to Harris Hall. It's good to see a nice audience this morning. We have a number of items on the agenda prior to public comment, which I presume you're not all here for land use issues later on in the day. No. So public comment will come probably about 10 minutes past 9, I would expect. The first item on our agenda today is adjustments to the agenda. Mr. Mokrahajski, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
We have one item, Mr. Chair, 10B. The representatives are not able to be here today, so we're going to move that item to a future meeting.
Okay, with no opposition from the board, we will move item 10B. Commissioner Sorensen.
I just had an item for the adjustment, and that is I have to take off at about 10 minutes to 12 today.
Very good.
Should be done.
Yep. The morning meeting just got reduced by about 45 minutes. So, item 10B with no objection, any discussion to removing that from the agenda? That will be removed from the agenda and placed at a later date. Thank you very much. Any further adjustments to the agenda other than Commissioner Sorensen's stated early departure? None? Then we'll move along to Commissioner's business. Now, we don't normally do Commissioner business, but this is a time of the year where we take turns being the board chair, and my turn is just about up. In fact, we can count it in minutes and seconds as opposed to days and hours. So the first item on the agenda today is Commissioner's business. And I'm not sure what this item A is. Nobody's consulted me on item A. It's a presentation of award to current board chair, Chair Farr. So I'll turn the gavel over to Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you, Chair. And on behalf of the board and the rest of the administration and staff of Lane County, we want to present you with this plaque in honor and in recognition of your year spent as chair. People don't realize that as chair, you get a lot of extra duties and are expected to speak for the board, to the press, but you have to be careful as to speak for the board and not for yourself. And it adds a lot of extra to being a commissioner, and we're appreciative of Pat's efforts. He's done an outstanding job and handled it with his usual decorum and kindness. So thank you, Pat, for your year as chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. Thank you.
And one other little extra item here. We have a little extra gift here. They gave me a gift card to King Estates Winery because it's out in my section when I was chair. But for Pat, we have a very special gift card.
Jerry's.
You got it.
Right on. 10,000 bucks.
Yeah. But of course, we know Pat's also a woodworker, so he'll make good use of that Jerry's gift card.
And I started working at Jerry's when it was the 5th largest hardware store in Eugene. It's a little bit different today. So thank you very much. I will use this $5 to great advantage. $5. Thank you so much. As the departing chair, you will not have the benefit of my ruling with an iron fist any longer. So I'll be meekly sitting toward the end of the bench as of next meeting. But I do have a moment to state a few items. So I'm going to reread my State of the County address from yesterday. It was only 35 minutes. No, I'm not going to do that. But you can, if you want to see the State of the County address, which I did read yesterday to the audience here, about 100 people, you can look at it on www.forumlane.org. The entire text of the address is on Forum Lane. So thank you very much. And thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. And so I have one more item that I will be doing, and that is the election of the chair. At this point, we will elect the new chair for 2018, and I will call on nominations for chair. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to nominate Commissioner Jay Bozievich for the board chair for 2018.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Williams, seconded by Commissioner Lycan. Discussion to the motion? I see no discussion to the motion. All those in favor of the nomination of Commissioner Bozievich for chair of the Board of County Commissioners for 2018, please say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously, and Chair Bozievich, please assume the chair. Thank you. Gift certificate.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to my fellow board members. The next item of business on the agenda is the election of vice chair, and I will take nominations for vice chair. Commissioner Farr.
Commissioner Bozovich, I nominate, Chair Bozovich, I nominate Commissioner Lycan, Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners for 2018.
Second?
Any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, I will close the nominations, and we will vote on the motion. All those in favor of Commissioner Lycan for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. And there we go.
All right.
Not too much shuffling today.
May I go home now?
We know you feel great relief. So we'll move on in the agenda now. We're down to public comments, and we have a whole bunch of people signed up. I will be timing the comments. When you come to the podium, I'm going to call somebody's name to come to the podium. I'll also call the next person in line, so you know you're on deck, so to speak, so we can kind of keep things moving. I will set a timer for 3 minutes. We allow folks to address the board. When the timer goes off, if you kind of finish your sentence or your thought, and we'll get on with the next person. So the first person I have signed up for public comment is Carol Scherer, and followed by John Thelking.
Good morning. I'm Carol Scheer, and I'm in Mr. Williams' district. I live at 3245 Jayhawk Court in Eugene. And I'm here on behalf of the band for aerial spraying. Aerial herbicides are Lane County's Flint, Michigan. Timber barons and Wall Street hedge fund investors do not have to live here, and if they do, they can move away. The large timber owners are leading us down the road similar to that led the people in the coal industry, in the coal country. This blight must be stopped. The forest industry barons are like the emperor with no clothes. The industry accounts for only 2% of Oregon's GDP, and the wood products industry accounts for just 1.9% of the employment in Oregon. Oregon is growing because of our amenities. Employment and GDP are increasing nicely. If the environment is harmed, our growth is stalled. Our future will have been harmed for the profits of a few. Our opportunities will decrease, and citizens will be stuck as those in the coal area. It is within the power of the county commissioners to refer the aerial herbicide charter amendment to the November ballot as an initiative. Mr. Williams, today, as my commissioner, I ask you to protect our health and our environment and our economy and our jobs, and be one of 3 commissioners to refer the amendment to the ballot. Will you let the people vote? Your response following public comments will be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have John Thelking, followed by Victor Odlevac.
Hello, my name is John Thelking. I live in Pete Sorensen's district. Upon doing some research, including consulting the 2017 planning manual documents available at the HACSA office, otherwise known as HACSA office, I have found that there are 2 myths about Section 8 that need to be busted. First, the urban legend where the single mother can't have the father of their child stay with her because it violates the rules, since the father doesn't receive Section 8 as bunk. As long as the father can pay his unsubsidized portion of the rent, and especially if he can be on a separate lease for a separate room in the apartment, everything is fine according to the Lane County HACSA documents that I read. The bottom line is that roommates are allowed for people on Section 8 in Lane County. The second myth that needs to be busted is that there is nothing in the HACSA manual that prevents someone from having a cosigner when trying to qualify for a place while using a Section 8 voucher. In fact, I know of at least one person who is applying for an apartment with a co-signer while using their Section 8 voucher. This next part has to do with Lane County business. If the Lane County Commissioners will not allow an aerial spray ban initiative to go onto the ballot, they may have to directly face the wrath of the Lane County people. For you see, the whole idea of having votes on initiatives after a 2 to 5 year process of getting on the ballot and failing that, having a regulatory agency hear the gripes of the people about environmental issues, is to set up a buffer between the government and the people on the street to make the people in power feel more comfortable in dealing with public opposition. The Lane County Commissioners are risking throwing out all that history and throwing themselves directly to the wolves, so to speak, if they continue down their current path. Just a few years ago, political opposition without a vote of the people and in between regulatory agency hearings completely shot down and gutted the state of California's attempts to conduct aerial spraying to allegedly combat the light brown apple moth. Unless the Lane County Commissioners want to see that piece of history repeat itself here in Lane County, I strongly suggest that they allow the vote on the community rights of Lane County initiatives to proceed to the ballot. Finally, I'd like to throw out the hashtag Free Ed Tamimi. It has to do with a Palestinian teenager who was arrested after slapping an Israeli soldier, and the Zionists are making a big deal about how violent she is. But they leave out the fact that her cousin was shot in the head with a rubber bullet, and she was just a little bit pissed off about that. So Free Ed Tamimi. And also the Lane County chapter of the Pacific Green Party condemned the Israeli government for their actions against her family. Thank you.
Thank you. So Victor Odlovac, followed by Pam Driscoll.
Yes, my name is Victor Odlovac. I'm at 1620 Lorraine Highway. Pete Sorensen, I believe, is my commissioner, but is that correct?
I don't know.
And I'm speaking to the other 4 commissioners. Is Commissioner Williams? Oh, well, speaking to Commissioner Williams then. I expected that we wouldn't need to be here. When you saw 30,000 people sign 2 different petitions, I expected you would just listen to the people, petitions would be accepted, done. But then you invent this thing about more than one subject, which has never before happened in Lane County in any initiative. And now you have the power to simply refer this so we can vote on it. The same way the state saw the power and we needed to have the Measure 101 referred, and they just did it. Well, you can do the same thing. It only takes 3 of you. So I ask really that all 5 of you refer this now. Refer it by the end of the meeting. I don't know why you cannot listen to the people. It is horrendous what you're doing. Refer it, listen to the people, and let us vote. Let us voice be heard. This is not a dictatorship. It should not be run like a dictatorship. The people need to be heard and listened to. We followed the rules. We signed all those petitions. We worked 2 years to gather all those signatures. How dare you deny that? Thank you.
Please, no applause. Pam Driscoll, followed by Rob Dickinson.
My name is Pam Driscoll. I live at 81394 Lost Creek Road in Dexter. Gary Williams is my representative, which I did not get to vote for him. He was appointed. First off, if you really want to listen to your constituents, it'd be great if you had the meetings like at 7 p.m. when people aren't working, so I don't have to take off work to come. Similar to the city council, I've asked this several times. I don't know why you haven't.
Excuse me a minute, Pam.
Yes.
I'm just going to remind the audience why we have a no applause rule, and we have rules of decorum that the board has adopted, and we are going to re-adopt for this year, and it's based on making people feel comfortable in speaking to us. And if there's applause from the audience or demonstrations from the audience, somebody that may want to get up and say something that is in opposition to what the majority of people are showing support for may feel intimidated. And it's about making people feel included and accepted here speaking to the board. So I'll ask one more time, please refrain from applause and demonstrations from the audience and let people feel included and free to speak and address their elected people. Yes, it is. So thank you in advance for adhering to the board's rules of decorum. And Pam, I'll restart your 3 minutes.
Okay. So yeah, we do want to be heard. We want our freedom of speech. So it would be really great if the meetings were not at 9 in the morning on a Tuesday when a lot of people have to work, or, you know, as in my case, I didn't take any work today. The second time I've come here for this issue. So last time we were here in December, speaking out against the aerial herbicide spraying, Pat Farr answered he didn't want to burden us with a response. I really think you just didn't want to give your response because there really is no reason that people shouldn't be allowed to vote to stop the drift of aerial poisons going into farms, farm animals, people's yards, pets, children. We should be allowed to vote on this. It's simple. And I can answer the question why you guys aren't on our side. It was right here, Wednesday, January 3rd. County board seats will be contested. Who took money from whom? Bozovich and fellow commissioner incumbents Lyken and Williams are benefiting from deep-pocketed local supporters, especially in the timber industry and construction industries. Melvin McDougall, hey, one of the guys that helped tear down Parvin Butte, you guys didn't help us with. Took $10,000, Bozovich and Lyken in November. Justina Resources, great clear cutters where I live, gave Bozovich $5,000 and Lyken $1,000 last year. And Justina made $2,500 to Williams. Wildlish Land Company gave Bozovich $5,000. Delta Sand and Gravel donated $5,000 to Williams. That's who you guys are working for. Let's just be honest here. For a long time, it's been that way. So I don't really expect you guys to do the right thing, but you know what? Luckily, we have an election coming up, so hopefully we can get you guys out. If there is, in the event that the spray ban and self-government charters amendment don't prevail, we expect you to support our right to vote by referring these initiatives to the November 2018 ballot. I also want to bring up really quickly, there's a Resilient Federal Forest Act, H.R. 2936, which passed in the House, in the federal level on November 1st. It would increase the ONC lands, which you guys are working with the Association of ONC Counties to get more of our forests clear cut. And it would triple the current logging levels on these forests. So for, let's see. And it would also get the categorical exclusion zone, which is where there's no scientific environmental impact or no public comment. It used to be 70 acres or under to 45 square miles, which is like 10,000 acres, where they could clear cut our public forests with no public comment. So I'd like to see you guys come out and in support of protecting our forests instead of expanding the clear cutting and spraying of our forests. So I don't really expect you to, but I hope that you look inside yourselves and stop looking at where you're getting your money and look at the right and be on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Rob Dickinson, followed by Richie Gross.
Chair Bozovich and Commissioners, I'm Rob Dickinson with Freedom from Aerial Herbicides Alliance and a supporter of the initiative to ban the aerial spraying of herbicides in Lane County. About a month ago, this very room was packed with people who came out to protest the county's decision to block this initiative from the ballot. These were people who were upset about the ongoing threat to their health and their livelihoods, and others who were standing up for what they saw as an affront to the democratic process. The outcry at the last meeting was from citizens wanting government to do its job and protect their health and safety. Current law gives residents no effective protection from aerial spraying, and in fact, it protects those that do the spraying. When we were here last, the impression one might have received was that you as commissioners sympathize with the supporters of this initiative and their concerns. But alas, your hands are tied, the matter is in court, and it's just not up to you to decide how this turns out. But we're here today to tell you that you to let you know that there is something that you can do. If you truly believe in the democratic process and if you support the people's lawmaking power, then you can start today and truly represent the citizens of Lane County. Reading from section 2.657 from the Lane County Code, board referral of a measure. The board may place on the ballot any county measure or refer a measure of county legislation to be voted on according to the procedures and deadlines specified by state law. That's right. It's fully within your authority to refer a measure of county legislation to the people. Even if you disagree with the substance of our initiative, you can still give the many thousands of people that have demanded this choice their chance at the ballot box. You can refer the substance of our initiatives to the voters as a simple ordinance. With the 11,560 signatures that we've submitted, we've more than proven the public support normally required of initiatives to be placed on the ballot. I have copies of our initiatives formatted as ordinances that you could refer to the voters without delay. We already know that such a measure would comply with the single subject and full text rules, and a simple ordinance, there would be no separate vote issue. There is no legal obstacle blocking you from taking this action immediately. There's only a question of will. Lane County residents are looking to you to represent them, and you have a responsibility to take their concern to heart. Before I close, I want to remind everyone here about Lane County's strategic plan, which was the subject of yesterday's State of the County address. The top priority was creating a safe, healthy county. How can we call that our top priority and continue to allow helicopters to spray poisons that sicken our families? How can we say that we have a safe county when children can't play at a local creek because they could be sprayed at any time? What kind of safety is that? No, if we really considered that a top priority, we would all work together to stop the spraying. As our elected representatives, I urge you to act on our top priority and to help us create a safe, healthy county. And referring our initiative to the November ballot is a place to start. And I'm going to give you copies of the initiative formatted. One of them is the local self-government initiative, which we just recently submitted the last of the signatures for. Thank you.
Richard Gross, Deadwood, Oregon.
Thank you, Richard.
Commissioners, Commissioner Bozovich, I want to thank you for our discussion the other day. You said the main thing is getting people onto the front porch and out of the backyard. I couldn't agree with you more. And furthermore, I promise, and I can say that since I'm not running for office, that if I ever run into you in Weimar, I'll say hello, but not say anything about politics, as long as you continue to keep your office door open. You said there is a very fine line between a representative republic and a democracy. Generally, I might agree, but these days I soundly differ. The divide is great when that side of the line of representation has veered far and farther from the ideals of a republic, unless you are speaking of a banana republic. When dollars have literally become the right to free speech and inanimate concepts named corporations have assumed the privileges and the rights of flesh and blood persons, then we no longer live in a representative republic, or certainly not in a democracy. We live in a corporatocracy, a kleptocracy, a government by thieves. Picture this. 62 equals 3.5 billion. This is an equation representing 62 of the wealthiest individuals in the world who hold as much wealth as the poorest, 3,500,000,000. This is our problem projected onto a world scale. Excuse me if you think that I will veer from the single subject rule or the separate vote rule, which very few seem to know the meaning of anyway. For every law, there is a technical aspect and there is a spirit of the law. Somewhere in between lies the genuine nature of its value and its applicability. The initiative process was engineered for the most important body of government, the people. The legislature can refer a decision to the voters anytime a decision is too hot for them to handle. For the people, To initiate an initiative takes time, literally thousands of hours, money, grit, organization. In short, it takes people's lives. You can refer this fundamentally sound initiative to the people of our county who long for the empowerment that their voice matters. As Article 1, Section 1 of our Constitution says, all power is inherent in the people.
Thank you. So we now have Michelle Holman, followed by Bess Noble.
Michelle Holman, Deadwood, Oregon. I've received the permission of Commissioner Farr to speak for Lynn Bowers, who cannot be here. She's one of the chief petitioners of the Freedom from Aerial Herbicides Alliance spray ban. She is on hospice at home, and these are her words. One more warrior woman walks the Western Road. I'm coming to the end of the activist path, trod by our beloved Audrey Moore from Josephine County and Jan Ronci, Triangle Lake. I am dying of cancer after a long, healthy life. This is not a fight any of us chose. We did not put ourselves in harm's way. The timber companies came to our homes with their herbicide poisons. My friends, neighbors, colleagues, I'm so sorry to be leaving you so soon. Timber guys, examine your consciousness. You cannot say you didn't know or were just following orders after 40 years of widespread harm.
Thank you. Bess Noble, followed by David Trent.
I'm Bess Noble, and Pete Sorensen is my commissioner. As a sixth-generation Oregonian, I'm proud that Oregon was the first state to pass the initiative and referral process. I believe that elected officials must listen to the people and give people access to the ballot box in order to express their preferences in how our communities will be governed. Let the people vote on the spray ban, either by the initiative process, which is now proceeding through the courts for the May ballot, or by referring it to the people for the general election in November. Let the people vote. If you continue to delay the initiative process, you will face opposition in your next election by candidates who will listen to the people and not interfere with the people's right to vote on initiatives. People are more important than corporations. We came out today because we want to be heard. We are not whiners, as we were described in a recent op-ed opinion that was in the Register Guard. We just want to be heard. Let the people vote. Human history has shown us that human beings have a tremendous ability for destruction. And we also have a tremendous ability to cooperate. The key to deciding whether to be destructive or to cooperate is for human beings to know that they belong in the natural world and to live in a good relationship with that natural world. This is our home, and it brings joy to us to know that we are in harmony with nature. I choose cooperation over destruction. I choose mutual respect that will encompass all beings on this planet. Please don't give in to fear. Let the people vote. Let the people vote.
David, okay, thank you.
Yeah. So my name is,
and you're going to be followed by Stuart Barn. Okay. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, my name is David Tveit, and I live at 801 Lynn Lane in the River Road area of Lane County. This is Commissioner Pat Farr's district, and first, I want to thank you again, Commissioner Farr, for meeting with us last Friday. We in Lane County want you commissioners to put our two current initiatives on the ballot for the November 2018 general election in the form of ordinances and not as charter amendments. As Rob has said, this is fully within the power of the commissioners to do so and is not impeded by any separate vote requirement tied with charter amendments. I have collected many hundreds of signatures for both initiatives myself, and overall we have collected over 30,000 signatures for the two initiatives. In collecting these signatures, I have talked with many rural Lane County residents who have been very adversely affected by this chemical assault and trespass and want it stopped. It is very clear to me that a large number of Lane County voters want to vote on this issue. Don't deny them. Don't deny us. Please give us, all of us, the ability to vote on this issue by putting our two initiatives on the ballot as ordinances. Thank you.
Stuart Barn, followed by Tim Atterbury. Stuart Barn, sorry.
I'm bringing a shift in what I'm hearing here today. I respectfully ask this council to consider opening these sessions with prayer. We all need wisdom. We know where that comes from. I have a corporation here, so I guess I'm one of the bad guys. I started as delivery boy in that corporation. I'm now chairman of the board of two of them. I feel that we have worked very hard as a corporation in this town. We have over 600 employees. But I hear all the whiners that's going on, and I wouldn't have you guys' job for nothing. I really want you to know that no matter how you come out, whether you'll have your sessions in prayer or not, there's going to be a bunch of us in this community that's going to be praying for you, because it's not an easy job that you've got. But I think we know what made this country great. There are precedents right here in Oregon. The state government opens with prayer. The federal government opens with prayer. The Pentagon opens with prayer. NORAD has a chaplain, as the U.S. Senate has a paid by your taxes, yes, chaplain of the United States Senate. Why does Eugene and Lane County in the past rule this out when there's wisdom to be had and other people in other areas have already set the precedent that wisdom is needed in all your decisions? We speak for a lot of people in this community that don't like conflict, don't like to hear whiners. So I really think that we're going to be praying for you. I mean that. There'll be some other speakers that's going to follow me. I just want you to consider that. Thank you for your service. We salute you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Tim Atterbury, followed by Fergus McLean.
Residing in a state where in our state capital
Excuse me, Tim, can you
legislature
state your name for the record? Can you state your name for the record, please? Can you restate your name for the record?
Okay. My name is Tim Atterbury. I'm a Lane County resident.
Thank you.
Sorry. Residing in a state where in our state capital legislature's sessions open with prayer, and living in a community which prides itself in diversity and tolerance of all citizens, regardless of their religion, I would like to add my support to the notion of opening Lane County Commissioners' meetings with prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Fergus McLean, followed by Wesley Lockman.
Hello, my name is Fergus McLean. I live in Dexter in Commissioner Williams' district. Congratulations on your appointment, Commissioner. I'd like to thank you all for your many years of public service, and particularly your success at bringing the county to some fiscal stability. That's well done. Perhaps Commissioner Farr will remember better than some of us, being a naturalized citizen, that the fundamental purpose of the American experiment is preservation of rights. That is why you are sitting here, because there are rights. And who is to protect these rights? Well, we create a government, and their just powers are derived from the consent of the people. The purpose is rights. The path is the consent of the people. So really, obtaining the consent of the people is your fundamental priority, or should be. Reflecting on Mr. Dingell's questionable arguments takes me back to the dark days of Leanne Richardson, when he was her arm, and Commissioners Lycan and Bozovich carried on a unconscionable vendetta against Commissioner Sorensen and his colleagues. Very cynical and hypocritical, because Commissioner Stewart was accused of the same crimes as those who you guys were persecuting. And then you hired Leanne, who was not unequipped for the job, and you manipulated her to carry out this disgrace, and then you destroyed her. Dark days. So now we have Dingell, whose job is apparently to provide plausible deniability to you gentlemen for refusing to allow the people's voice to be heard. The separate vote rule that the timber industry lawyer raised has never been applied to anything but the state constitution. And not being a lawyer, I couldn't say for sure, but Judge Rasmussen's opinion that that statute is not self-executing implies to me that Mr. Dingell's agenda is not legal at all, but is blatantly political. The sad return to the darkest days of county misgovernment is regrettable and easily avoidable. We expect better of you gentlemen.
Thank you. So, Devin, if you could bring the next sheet up. I'm almost done with the first one. So, Wesley Lockman, followed by Deborah McGee.
Good morning. I'm Wesley Lockman, and I live at 1567 Barber Drive in South Eugene. I ran across an interesting thing yesterday. It was a quote from Terry Witt. I don't know if you know Terry, but for 25 years, Terry was the executive director of Oregonians for Food and Shelter, which, as you will recognize, is a big, big trade group for timber, agriculture, and some chemical industries. And he was quoted in The Atlantic, August 14th, 2012, and he mentioned that spraying was a very economical way to do the kind of work that they needed to do to get their plantings up, which was nice. Then he says that industry could change this practice, but adds, quote, "We believe that if it's done responsibly and legally, it does not represent unreasonable harm." Now, I think that's a priceless statement. As long as it doesn't represent unreasonable harm. Well, what would reasonable harm be then? Shall we take a list? Maybe it would be something like 1 death, 5 cancer cases, 40 miscarriages, and 80 children missing school because they have coughs that last months and months. Maybe that's not enough. But for my money, this is not a harmless thing we're playing with. Nobody would take this stuff and put a drop of it in an infant's water bottle or milk bottle. Nobody would have this in their coffee every day. It is technically chemical crap, and we're spraying it all over our people. So there are quite a few people here in the county who object very strenuously to poisoning children. I mean, just a lot of us. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a lot of us. And as somebody said recently on another subject, the time is up. The time is up for this. And we want you to help us with it.
Thank you. So I have Deborah McGee, followed by Patricia Hine.
My name is Deborah McGee. I've lived on 5 acres in the county for 30 years. The day after Christmas, I read the news that Carlsbad, New Mexico had banned all herbicides and pesticides unless they were organic. Why? Because the citizens had strongly expressed their concerns about the safety of their use. I wondered what the safety concerns might be, so I did a little noodling on the computer. So I looked at just one chemical, glyphosate, sold as the herbicide Roundup, which is aerial sprayed all the time by timber companies and farmers in Lane County. I found a number of research studies. Glyphosate is known to have biological effects that align with pathogens associated with autism. Glyphosate is toxic to beneficial bacteria. It promotes aluminum accumulation in the brain and may make it the principal cause of autism in the United States. Glyphosate can disrupt vitamin E, which is crucial for normal fetal development. Babies of women living within a half a mile of fields sprayed with glyphosate were more than twice as likely to have babies with birth defects, including heart defects and baby boys born with a micropenis. Did you know that baby boys born with deformed genitalia is the most common birth defect in the United States now? One study looked at kidney failure among agricultural workers. Scientists have concluded, I quote, glyphosate seems to destroy the renal tissues when it forms with hard water and minerals. Glyphosate disrupts chemical processes that impact the production of serotonin, a neurotransmitter that regulates mood, appetite, sleep. Loss of serotonin has been linked to depression. Maybe that's why so many are on Prozac. You men are getting older now, so this one should interest you. In lab research, glyphosate caused the same type of oxidative stress and neural cell death observed in Alzheimer's disease. Did you know that statistically 1 in 3 Americans now get cancer? My friend's baby was born with a brain cancer tumor. Researchers found that if either parent had been exposed to glyphosate during the 2 years before the child's birth, the chances of the child developing brain cancer doubled. Another study said glyphosate induces human breast cancer cell growth via estrogen receptors. I don't have time to mention all the other cancers, but I will mention that my mother died of cancer. My sister died of cancer in this county 2 years ago. So let's see, cancer, Alzheimer's, kidney failure, depression, birth defects, just to mention a few of the health issues. The people of Carlsbad didn't have to pass a law to be protected. The representatives they elected passed a law to protect the people. Why don't you, our county commissioners, care about our health and safety? Does the money and contribution from the timber industry move you more than the people's need for health and safety? Please help us get free from toxic aerial sprays.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Patricia Hine. I live in the southwest part of the county out in Eugene, southwest area. I'm in Commissioner Williams' East Lane County District. The Home Rule Charter for Lane County, very interesting read this morning, was approved by the voters in 1962 at the general election. Our charter contains many sections about the important work that you do for us. I'd like to read the preamble really quickly. But first, here's what a preamble is, according to Webster. An introductory statement, especially the introductory part of a constitution or statute that usually states the reasons for the intent of the law. Here it is. We, the people of Lane County, Oregon, in order to avail ourselves of self-determination in county affairs to the full extent permissible, etc. Not to put too fine a point on it, let me repeat. We, the people of Lane County, Oregon, in order to avail ourselves of self-determination in county affairs. 24 states have this process of initiatives and referendums that allow citizens to put new legislation on the ballot. I guess that's pretty hard. It's not been easy for us, I know, over these last couple years. Here's a little bit of interesting background from the charter, which is 12 pages long. At the end of it were a couple pages of amendments, charter amendments, 18 altogether. Interestingly, only one of the amendments was referred by an initiative petition of the people and approved by the majority of legal voters. That was in 1992. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But the rest of the charter amendments were referred by the Board of County Commissioners. I guess that's the way we're going to have to go. The one referred by the initiative petition of the people, number 8 in the lineup, essentially restricted the county's use of and transfer of the East Alton Baker Park to 237 acres to developers for a golf course. It restricted it. It was the only amendment passed on to the vote by the people, and it was about developing a golf course in East Alton Baker Park. There was a lot about that in the charter, a page and a half. The people did not like that idea. On that occasion, it seems the people had a very different point of view about what the then county commissioners were thinking to do. So they passed an initiative along, put it to the ballot, and now their wishes were codified. Well, that's what we've been trying to do. It's been very difficult. I guess 1 out of 18 explains why. So now we are asking you here to refer these as ordinances. The Freedom from Aerial Spraying of Herbicides Bill of Rights and the Community Self-Government Charter Amendment. Please refer them as ordinances to the ballot for us in November. Uphold the intent of the county charter so that we, the people of Lane County, Oregon, may avail ourselves of self-determination properly under the charter. Thank you.
Thank you. So next I have Wayne Cord, and I'm going to botch this, Cordade, and then followed by Bernadette Boressa.
Good morning. My name is Wayne Cordero, and I live on Royal Avenue in West Eugene. I want to say thank you for allowing me to just speak briefly in favor of reconsidering the opening prayer in government settings such as the Oregon County Commission sessions that you have. As we have seen surrounded by the deliberations, we need about as much wisdom as we can get. Our country's culture has been developed over 3 centuries of struggle and victories by millions of men and women who have sought freedom. And our history is well documented and fully verifiable that it was primarily Christian men and women based on Christian principles that founded this nation. And thus, in honor of our own history and for our posterity, it is certainly appropriate to continue this benevolent practice. In recent polls, we find that even in our postmodern society, the majority of Christians believe in God. Prayer is not just a Christian right-wing political push. It's really a call to support our leaders and an appeal to the eternal that God would bless America and give us more wisdom that we may have in ourselves. Our country has been historically sustained by courageous men and women who have a respect for our history, who understand the present and can extrapolate current decisions made into future wholesomeness for our citizens. And yet there will always be people who will disagree. I think we can all agree to that. As one man said, you can be a juicy, ripe peach, and there will still be someone who doesn't like peaches. Public prayer has always been used to encourage, to build up, and to call for the sustenance of our leaders. It's not a disparaging or deprecating treatise that we see so often cloaked under free speech. Prayer really encourages patriotism. If you think about it, prayer calls citizens to respect our flag, to honor our leaders, to vote wisely, and to support our families and think well about our future. And come to think of it, we have no other preamble prior to any other government meetings that encourages these kinds of virtues except prayer. The retention of this great practice will remind us all that we really are greater together. And the very principles that pioneered this great nation will be the very same practices that will sustain it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Bernadette Boressa, followed by Guy Higginson. I'm having trouble reading handwriting sometimes. Go ahead, Bernadette.
My name is Bernadette Barassa, and I live in Commissioner Williams' district. The subjects that I'm most knowledgeable about are natural childbirth and childhood development. I delivered my own 5 babies at home with the help of midwives. I've helped other women who are giving birth at home. I've been a midwife and a doula. My own 3 daughters asked me to attend them when they gave birth to their babies, so I was honored to be at the birth of 5 of my grandchildren. I've also spent 16 years in Catholic schooling, which is where my tendency to preach and quote Bible stories comes from. And if we have prayer here, we're going to get some Kalapuya Indians to lead us in those prayers, and maybe we'll bow to the east as part of our praying, and we'll look at God as a woman. Meanwhile, today's lesson is actually titled, You Can't Serve Two Masters. So while raising my own children and in working as a volunteer in various 4J schools, at Birth to 3, other organizations in this community, I've learned to advocate for children, and I'm going to advocate for children right now. I would like to ask you gentlemen to consider that aerial spraying of toxins is bad for children, bad for pregnant women, bad for us all, but we're focusing on babies and young children right now. When a woman decides to have a child, she's encouraged by society to do all she can to give birth to a healthy baby, take prenatal vitamins, go for exams, exercise, give up alcohol and cigarettes, etc. But society is not doing its part. I know you've taken some static today for taking money. There's nothing wrong with pursuing money in our lives. My husband also owns a corporation. I don't equate corporations with evil, but we need to have balance in our lives. So we need to look at a pregnant woman and say she has the right to breathe clean air, not only take vitamins and exercise, but eat unpolluted food, drink clean water, and have breast milk that's uncontaminated. And society has to be a part of this. We can pretend that what is sprayed over a clear-cut area stays put and never affects us. Isn't that ridiculous? We need to listen to these people who are painfully aware of the horrible facts to the contrary. We've all heard their stories. We've read their stories. We know these stories, and we need to listen to these organic farmers, these parents, the way we've begun to listen to women who tell stories of abuse. The message of time's up transcends all manner of social justice issues. This is where we're at in our evolution as human beings. We're listening to people. While we continue to pursue money, we're going to take care of our own health and take care of Mother Earth. Deliberately subjecting pregnant women and children, as well as men and wildlife, to toxins is morally wrong. It's time to listen to the people of Lane County who are saying, stop poisoning us. On the other side of the issue is the choice to continue spraying, and don't pretend this horrible deed is for good reasons. There's no reason to continue this barbaric practice. You counselors need to decide who you serve, and don't tell me, tell yourselves. Write it down for your grandchildren to know you better. Who do you serve?
Thank you. Guy Higashi, I think I figured out the handwriting, and followed by Dennis Conradi.
My name is Guy Higashi. I'm a resident of Lane County. I live in 2285 Parker Place. Dear Board Commissioners and Lane County, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to address and to share testimony requesting the opening of prayer at the County Commission meeting. I too care about children. There was once a leader, if I could start with a story, who was asked to rule over a very important issue. It was a dispute over a child. 2 women both claimed to be the mother of this child. And here's the context. Both women gave birth to their children at about the same time, lived in the same household. One mother inadvertently rolled over on her newborn and while she was asleep, and he died. The first mother took the dead infant and replaced it with the other child that was still alive. The second mother awoke to feed her child and noticed that it wasn't alive anymore, and she knew that the dead baby was not hers. Of course, the other mother objected, and they argued back and forth and brought it before the leader. Suddenly, the leader said, "Both of you say that this live baby is yours. Someone bring me a sword." A sword was brought in, and he said, "Cut the baby in half. Each of you will get half of him." The first mother said, "Your Majesty, Don't kill my son. I love him very much. Give the baby to the other mother. The second mother says, well, go ahead and cut the infant in half. The leader retorted, don't kill the infant. Give the child to the first mother, for indeed she is the real mother. Everyone in the country was amazed with this decision, for there was wisdom and there was fairness in an extraordinary fashion. The leader's name was King Solomon, and the story is from 1 Kings chapter 3 in the Bible. And the reason I wanted to share with you this story is that good leadership requires both wisdom and fair judgment. King Solomon received his wisdom from God, and prayer was very important in the aspect of godly wisdom. He was considered globally the wisest and the wealthiest king of all the world. For over 200 years, and many government meetings and sessions and gatherings began with the opening of prayer and inviting godly wisdom and his presence to cover the decisions that the government makes and leadership makes on a regular basis. I have personally been invited to lead a prayer in the House of Representatives in the state of Hawaii. And I know there are meetings being opened across the United States, even here in Eugene, Oregon. As a citizen, as a resident, and as a voting member of Lane County, I'm asking the County Commission to open the meetings in prayer. We pray for you, and I thank you for your leadership and the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Dennis Conradi, followed by James Barber.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Conradi, resident of Lane County. And before you get started on your meeting, Jay, your sign is over in front of Mr. Farr. And so when it comes on TV, I just want it to look right if he's watching.
There you go.
Thank you.
He's a lot more handsome. You know.
I want to check mine, too.
You're good.
Somebody's OCD was getting the better of him.
I've had the opportunity to meet you all personally, the five of you, and I'm very thankful for what you guys do for our community and the counties. And I am also asking for this session to be opened up in prayer for you guys, for the wisdom that you have, and also the wisdom of the residents of Lane County. Growing up here as a native, born at Sacred Heart when it was in Eugene, Oregon, I can't express how great this community is that we have here, and all the people that are speaking, I think, have the sincerest, best interests of what they think should be right for this community. So if you do decide that it comes to a vote on the issue, I haven't researched it or know any wisdom, but if you do, I would invite you to not usurp the will of the voters like we did on the West Eugene Parkway. And twice we voted for that Eugene Parkway, and we voted again not to look for any alternatives, and yet it never happened. So if the will of the voters is what the will of the voters is, I invite us to do that. But in regards to corporations and wealthy people and poor people and the disparity between the haves and the have-nots, I would invite everybody to think about a verse from 2 Corinthians. And that is that it says that though he was rich, he became poor for our sake, so that in his poverty we might become rich. And so we have a choice of whether to be rich or not. Thank you.
Thank you. James Barber, followed by Robin Bloomgarden.
Morning, Commissioners. James Barber in Commissioner Williams' district. My concern is with the Citizens Initiative process, and I want to start out first. It seems there's some misunderstanding in Judge Rasmussen's ruling about what self-executing means. I think my reading of it, self-executing means that it doesn't automatically apply without some type of enforcement. And if you get to the end of that 15-page ruling, basically what he said was Stan Long couldn't sue for enforcement with the county clerk because the county clerk wasn't obligated yet to enforce that based on the law. And that enforcement doesn't take effect. It's not required until right before it gets on the ballot. So that's why I think we're in the position we're at today. Now it's imminent to be on the ballot because they got the signatures, and now the county clerk had to make a decision. My concern with the Citizens Initiative process is that whole procedure now threatens it. What we have is citizens that gathered thousands of signatures And only after gathering those signatures, it's going to be determined if there was a fatal flaw. If it determines that there's a fatal flaw, they're going to have to rewrite it. They're going to have to go out and get more signatures. That's a problem with the process. That's an infringement on the citizens' right to the initiative process. So my hope is we can learn from this. One of the things I think we need to do is, even though the county clerk isn't required to apply the separate vote requirement until after the signatures are gathered and it's imminent that it's going to be on the ballot, we can actually work with maybe county council, and the county clerk can work with petitioners to make sure that these things are met at the beginning of the process. And the other thing we can do with this one in particular is you guys can respect the effort that was put into it. There's a lot of emotion on this issue, but setting that aside, they did go through the process in good faith. They gathered the signatures. You guys do have the ability to put it on the ballot as an amendment in a way that meets the requirement. It doesn't even have to be an ordinance, as some of these people have asked. You guys can put it forth as an amendment. So I just hope that you guys will respect the citizens' initiative process and the effort that they put in to getting it on the ballot, and figure out a way to make that process better in the future and not set the precedent of getting the signatures, having it denied, and then having to do that whole process again. That's really what we're looking at happening here. So thank you.
Thank you. So Robin Bloomgarden, followed by Lonnie Douglas.
Robin Bloomgarden, I'm in Commissioner Williams' district. Everybody said everything except I just want to mention, as I was gathering signatures for years, I ran into a lot of people in the outer edges of the county who are timber people, but they also are hunters. And many, many of them would tell me stories about how they'd be hunting and they were seeing all these deer that were diseased and dying, and they didn't really want to kill them because they didn't want to eat them. But I could not get one of them to sign the petition because they were afraid to sign the petitions. But they knew that there's poisons out there, and they were telling me what they were seeing, and they were talking about a lot of animals that were diseased and dying in those forests. Thank you.
Thank you. Lonnie Douglas, followed by Steve Buss.
Yeah, Lonnie Douglas. I live in Springfield. I'm in Commissioner Likens' district. I'm here to talk about two things today: leadership and accountability. Okay. First off, when I look at our county commissioners, I see a glaring lack of leadership. There's a couple of you that I like, but there's two of you that I see a very glaring lack of leadership. Kind of evident when we switched our chairs here today, and the first thing that our new chair does is try to dictate to the citizens what applause is. First off, if you wiggle your fingers in support of something, and then you just don't wiggle your fingers or anything when somebody else comes up, you're not showing those people that you disrespect or making them feel uncomfortable. You're just showing support for the people that you're showing solidarity. A good example was the last time I was here. Mr. Bosevich, you weren't here to get your Scrooge Award last time, but I appreciated the fact that Commissioner Farr allowed us to step a little bit outside of the bounds. He allowed us to express ourselves as citizens in a way that, you know, may not make a lot of people in your nice, fancy suits that I'm sure you pay an awful lot to get dry cleaned. I'll get to that in a little bit. Comfortable, but I appreciated it. Leadership is about doing things, and a lot of times I see these county commissioners try and find excuses not to do things. You hide behind the law. You hide behind excuses. We're being poisoned in our county, okay? You don't need to refer this to the ballot. You should be banning the use of these chemicals. You should do that. for the people, for the children, for all the people that are getting sick. We know that this is a problem. Now, accountability, some of you are coming up for re-election. It's up to the people not to whine, because we're not whining. We're expressing our constitutionally protected rights to participate in our government. That is not whining. That is meeting your responsibility as a citizen. And I'm sure that Mr. Bosevich will pull out his pocket constitution again and tout how much he supports the Constitution, having probably never served in the military. I think the only one here who has is Mr. Farr. But I would say accountability. We got an election coming up. You gentlemen will be held accountable. I know that I will be canvassing and going out door to door in Mr. Likens' district to get people to vote. I don't care who they vote for, as long as they don't vote for you. And I am a conservative. I am a Christian. I am a hunter. I am a fisher. I like to fish. I like my guns, and I like my God. And I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of us common working folk that don't care that you, worked real hard to get rid of a chemical in dry cleaning, because guess what? We don't dry clean our suits. We can't afford it. Now, maybe if you guys were doing your job, we could afford some nice suits and get them dry cleaned. But that was your big claim to fame during the last county commissioner meeting. It didn't impress me. As for the prayer thing, I think that is an excellent idea. Like I say, I am a Christian. I believe that prayer is important. I start my day off with a prayer, and I try to end it with a prayer. And I do think, though, that if we do that, that we should include our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community, the Jewish community, and all the other communities of faith. Yes, I am a Christian, but I believe that God speaks to us all in our own way, and I don't have a problem with that. So I would like to thank the gentlemen who are here to ask for that. I don't think that it's a good idea or a bad idea, but I do think that if we do it, we should include all of our brothers and sisters and all of the faiths. So anyway.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Douglas. So, not sure I'm reading this right. Steve, is it Buss or Bliss?
Steve Buss left.
Buss, he left? Okay. Then I have Jerry, I think it might be Spelk. Smith? Is that, okay, yeah, Jerry Smith, sorry. Jerry Smith, and followed by Loretta Huston. Is Jerry Smith here?
Yeah, Jerry's right there.
Okay. Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry Smith, very proud to be in Commissioner Sorensen's district. I really want you to stop the poison spraying. At some point, the people that do this spraying will be recognized as the criminals they are. It's banned in every other major country because it's poisonous. We lost so many Vietnam veterans to this very same spray. One of my very good friends right now was just diagnosed with cancer, and the military told him it was because he was in the defoliated forests in Vietnam, in Cambodia. I'm a Christian, and I go to the interfaith meetings, and for goodness sakes, I have DNA of Native Americans. The Christians didn't make America. There were people here before, very badly misused, and their prayers are quite as important. My prayers are as important as anybody else's. So if you have prayer, please consider the interfaith community here. Those of you who know me know that I am a great advocate for homeless people. of course, many of them sleep in these very forests. But you haven't yet done right by homeless people. The kind of poverty they live in is so cruel that it's unbelievable. It's really the new American Holocaust. We're taking ordinary people who go broke and are too disabled to work. The federal government is now holding them off 2 years from their application, many of them longer than that. And they're in our community with no income, no place to go. It gets worse every day. The number of homelessness here and elsewhere has increased by 14% in the last year. The number of school children who are homeless is around 10%, not only in Lane County, but throughout the country. On the way down here and listening to the car radio, they were talking about Humboldt County having as many homeless people as we have here. They're just everywhere, everywhere there are homeless people, and it's a disgrace. We don't need this kind of poverty. I started after getting out of the Army, I went to work as a welfare social worker. And what we did when somebody was homeless, we paid their rent and found a place for them, usually within the day. And that went on in Oakland, California, the industrial asshole of the West. They were not kind. The commissioners were as conservative as anybody ever heard. The most liberal commissioner was appointed by Ronald Reagan, and they did not allow homelessness to exist. They didn't believe that it was good for the community and certainly not good for the people. We need to provide shelter. People aren't homeless that are sheltered. Just, think of last night or any other night recently. I volunteer at the Egan Centers when it gets frozen. My pastor, Dan Bryant, on the Christmas sermon had a terrible report to make about his cousin who's an alcoholic. The family asked him to look for him a couple of weeks back, and when they found him, he found him in Riverbend. He'd lost both of his legs to frostbite. And that's what's going on with homelessness. We got to stop it. We need to provide shelter.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Loretta Huston, followed by Kevin Matthews.
Loretta Houston, and I am in District 5 with Gary Williams. Well, I was going to give it a different approach and read off my phone, but I don't think I'm going to try that. Everybody else, I really respect the wisdom of this body of people here that have spoke with extreme wisdom and knowledge. They've done their research, and everyone is experiencing. I mean, we have a lot of history. We have a lot of evidence. Like people have mentioned, the Vietnam War, 2,4-D. We're still spraying that out there right now. 2,4-D, atrazine, glyphosate, trichlorpor, all combined. That's pretty severe. I mean, when we're arguing about a separate vote rule and single issues, is that illegal? I mean, is that really what we call legal, to be spraying poisons? So yeah, you've heard an earful of it, and yes, there is 1 in 3 men in today's world that are getting cancer, 1 in 4 women. So it is a crisis, and that's what we're facing during these times, is crisis upon crisis. So all we're asking of you is to support our basic democratic process, to support the initiative process, and to allow the people to decide to protect our health and our communities and our complex ecosystems. And I also would like to invite you, Thursday evening, we have Chuck Willer, who is going to give a fantastic presentation on Wall Street forestry and tax avoidance of the timber industry. And I hope you have come with an open mind. And learn, and this is going to be at the Garden Club at, is it 1645 High Street? High Street. And it's going to be at 7 to 9 p.m. this coming Thursday, the 11th. And I have a flyer for you that I will give you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Houston. Kevin Matthews, followed by Jabril Villa.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Matthews. I'm a candidate for East Lane County Commissioner. I live in Dexter in the heart of the East Lane County District, where my wife and I work to preserve endangered breed of horses. The good citizens of Lane County have spoken with you gentlemen over the last two meetings, made scientific arguments, historical arguments, moral arguments, legal arguments, political arguments, and you gentlemen have shown no sign that you are listening. There are any number of ways to resolve the problem that Lane County has created, that some 30,000 citizens have asked to vote on critical propositions relating directly to the health of those people, all citizens of Lane County, and you are standing in the way of the community's right to vote. Now, you are in a position of respect, and you have been treated with great respect. To actually talk about what's going on here makes that a little bit more challenging. As people have alluded to, we know who your campaigns are paid for. It's just been reported by the Register Guard, $5,000, $10,000 checks paying for your campaigns for the benefit of timber and sand and gravel, which industries are taking an incredible free ride on Lane County and the rest of the state of Oregon. The Chuck Willard presentation is going to talk about tax avoidance by the timber industry. Let's talk about timber taxes a little bit right now. The timber industry in Oregon decades ago used to be real corporate citizens. I mean, they were still ruthless union busters and wreaked havoc on the watersheds in the process of producing valuable, useful products for society, making a set of local families rich families. But that wasn't enough for them, apparently, because they went from paying property taxes on the trees as standing property like any regular business and property taxes on the land to only paying a severance tax on the trees when they were cut. And then, under cover of whining about federal environmental regulations to protect endangered species like the spotted owl and marbled murrelet, the Oregon State Legislature, bought and paid for by this timber industry, took those severance taxes and stepped them down 20% a year over 5 years, essentially to zero. The only fig leaf remnant tax is a harvest tax that all goes to the timber industry that isn't really a tax for the people anyway. On the property tax side, the timber industry pays a tiny fraction. It's been estimated a 40th of what regular taxpayers pay on our property taxes. And for the coup de grace, the recent national tax scam by the Republican president, House of Representatives, and Senate has shoved through a giant tax reorganization, which has tremendous benefits for real estate entities like our president, which will tremendously benefit Weyerhaeuser, the largest private landowner in Lane County with over 300,000 acres, that's organized not as a regular corporation, but as a real estate investment trust. So this industry, which is free riding on the citizens of Oregon, is also poisoning us. We want to vote on that. They can still poison on an individual backpack sprayer, working the land basis. We want to stop them doing Vietnam-style spraying from helicopters. Some of the same exact chemicals that were sprayed in Vietnam are being sprayed on Lane County right now. We want to vote on it, and we want you to let us do it. And there's a different vote that we'll take if you don't allow that, which is to vote you guys out.
So we have Jabrilla Villa and Angelique Orman.
Jabrilla Villa.
Jabrilla Villa, sorry.
It's fine. And Commissioner
struggling with names this morning. Go ahead.
Yes, well, good morning, and Commissioner Bozovich, thank you for responding to my emails, and I will continue them and hope to meet you in your office one day. Good morning to the rest of you. I will begin with prayer and saying that if that does come to be part of this assembly, our First Nations people were the first here, and their prayers should be the first heard. But I do stand here today for the freedom from aerial spray. I came for that today. And I'm an organic farmer. I've lived in the Coast Range for 40 years. And for 40 years, I've watched the helicopters and the hand spraying. And I'm growing organic vegetables. That means no spray. I've talked with you about this before. People have come and talked with you about this before. I ask you today to really listen and to respond. Give us the right to vote. And we shouldn't ask for the right to vote. We should have it when so many signatures have been signed. So much harm is being done to our community. You've heard children to elders and to our earth. We can't survive without our ecosystem. We cannot survive without the health of our earth. We need the trees. We need the fresh water. We need no chemicals. We know how to do that. We have the intelligence as humans. I've been growing organically for 40 years. I could speak right now for thousands of people that want our produce because there's no chemicals. But what can I say when my watershed, Long Tom and Poodle Creek watershed, is covered with herbicides? Consider the health of our planet, our people, and listen to the wisdom that's been spoken today. There is no whining going on. This is the truth, and it must be heard. Allow us the right to vote. Give us the vote so that we can all be heard.
Thank you. Angelique Orman, followed by Mark Rabinowitz.
Hi, Angelique Orman, Lane County. So we're simply asking to be allowed to stop poison raining down from the sky. It seems like a no-brainer, and we're asking you to allow us to vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Rabinowitz, followed by Karen Stingel.
Mark Rabinowitz, Lane County taxpayer. Regarding prayer, I much prefer Martin Luther King's approach of not pushing one's religious views on another, and we need to recall that he supported peace instead of endless war. Our founding fathers were well aware of the long history of religious warfare in Europe. That's why the U.S. Constitution calls for keeping religion out of government. I would have preferred the county commissioners had voted to prohibit the abuse of spraying carcinogens and mutagens over our heads. When the commission voted against grass field burning, your vote was 5-0. Apparently, Republicans get tired of breathing this too. Cancer doesn't care about political opinions. Last month, Commissioner Likens said he helped end the use of perchloroethylene, or PERC, in dry cleaners in Springfield. It's commendable and similar to the need to end the use of 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid and other similar poisons. In 1991, the former chair of the Indiana Republican Party, Gordon Durnell, was chair of the U.S.-Canada International Joint Commission on the Great Lakes, where he concluded that industrial chlorine caused breast cancer, testicular problems, endometriosis, and countless other problems, and that banning industrial chlorinated pollution would help public health. It would also reduce the need for bureaucracy, which is supposedly a conservative point of view. The federal forest stopped spraying 3 decades ago. It's time to stop Weyerhaeuser, Seneca, and their brethren. In the 1950s, Dr. Alice Stewart in England did research that showed X-raying pregnant women resulted in babies with higher rates of birth defects. At first, the medical establishment refused to believe this, but now it's considered the gospel truth in the medical profession, and a doctor who casually X-rayed a pregnant woman today would be considered to be doing malpractice. Similarly, infants and fetuses are much more vulnerable to chemical poisons than healthy male adults, or as a healthy male adult, I do not consent to being downwind of limited liability corporations who are protected by unjust laws from the consequences of their actions. Forests are the lungs of the earth. Nature bats last. And the Nuremberg Code on Human Experimentation, which is also federal law, says humans have the right not to be experimented upon. That dates to 1949. And complicity in forcing involuntary human experimentation is a felony, regardless of whether you're an elected official or just on the take from the McDougall brothers.
Thank you. Karen Stingle. And Karen is the last person I've signed up, but I will ask if there's anyone else that wants to address the board. Go ahead, Karen.
Karen Stingle. I live in Eugene as my primary residence, but I'm also a long-time member of the Deadwood community. And we came together in that valley as a community in 1975 when we realized there were a lot of us there and we needed to be in community. And one of the first things we tackled after the basics of, how to put a community together was the fact that we were getting sprayed involuntarily. And immediately, we joined together with people in Five Rivers who were experiencing the same thing and created a group called Citizens Against Toxic Sprays, which I'd say that's probably the origin of the current group, NCAP. I don't know the exact history of how things moved. We experienced several losses. We can't prove they were from spraying, but we are damn well sure they were. We lost some really valuable members of our community. Bob McGinnis, Carol, people had miscarriages, and we were getting sprayed two ways. One was county roadside spraying, and the other was from the Forest Service, because the Deadwood Valley is surrounded by Forest Service. And we fought, and we actually got the county to stop the roadside spraying. But we didn't go to the state with it, or we didn't succeed. I don't know. I don't remember the history of that part. So we still have to experience it riding on Highway 36. And I personally have felt ill after riding that road, which I love. It's like one of my favorite places to drive in the whole world. And I start feeling really weird after having done it. And then the next time I go past, I'd see everything turning yellow. I go, oh. And there was nothing at the time to let me know that that was about to, that was happening. So I can't believe that over 40 years later, we're still here dealing with this issue when we know so much about it. And we've told you, we've given you enough information to act on, and we're just asking to be able to vote. As for the praying, I'm a spiritual person. I don't like to have other people's beliefs imposed upon me. However, I would have no problem with having a time of silence and people being asked to pray to whatever God they find helps them get grounded. And I guess the other thing that came to me is when you're in a hole, stop digging. I feel like we're in a big hole.
Thank you. So that was everyone that has signed up for public comment this morning. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the board? Go ahead and come to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Mary Lou Robichaud. I live out in Deadwood, And this is a beautiful world. This is an awesome country where the people have the right to speak up and vote and tell their elected representatives the manner in which they would like to live. And my words are simple. I've collected signatures. We've spent a lot of time talking to folks, seeing if there's support. Many people do not want to be sprayed with poisons. There's thousands of signatures asking simply, let us vote. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Go ahead and come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Klusman. I live in Springfield, Mr. Likens district. And I'm a fairly recent transplant to Oregon. I'm a 6-year resident now, but I've been coming out to Oregon for many years. I've had family and friends of 40 years who've lived here. Most recently, my oldest brother, who was a Marine in Vietnam and flew Huey helicopters during the war, flew rescue missions to rescue injured Americans, and he was exposed to Agent Orange, which you all know used some of the same chemicals that we're still spraying on our people here. And I moved to Oregon because I loved it here. I love the environment. It seemed that Oregon was so progressive in all, social issues, and especially with the environment. And since living here, I've just been appalled to learn about the devastation of the forests and the practices that have continued to go on for 40 years, as people have attested. And I would ask you to reach within your own conscience to do the same thing, to help us, as the people have spoken already, with all of the petitions that have been signed, to get these initiatives on the ballot so that the people can vote and decide on these issues that are so critical to the health and welfare and safety of not only our people, but our entire ecosystems and environment. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anyone else? So I get 2 or 3 more people, so if you can come up one at a time, state your name for the record. I'll start your timer after you've stated your name.
My name's Robert Jacobs. I'm recently moved into Eugene, Mr. Sorensen's district, after 40 plus years in rural Lane County. On the topic of aerial sprays, it's obvious that you, as the legal elected representatives of Lane County, should not be allowing toxins to be poisoned in the forests and waters and air of the people of this county. On the topic of separation of church and state, it's obvious that every time in human history that any government agency has sponsored a religion, there's always some body of people who are going to feel left out, because it's never 100% of the people that are part of whatever religion is sponsored. Thank you.
Thank you. So go ahead and come to the podium and state your name for the record. I think there's
Steve Elliott from Swiss Home. I've heard a lot of people here this morning speaking of wisdom, and some of those people think that wisdom comes from God and we should pray to get that wisdom. Somehow I find that all these other developed countries in the world have come up with the wisdom that they say that this poison, glyphosate, is not good for our people. And somehow you do not have that wisdom to come up to the same conclusion. I don't understand the disparity when so many people think it's wrong and you don't.
So I saw a couple other hands. Go ahead and come up to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Sherry Lockman. I'm in Pete Sorensen's district, a citizen here for 20 years. And I'm almost 80. I'm an elder. And I know that people my age have some real difficulty breathing people who live around here, and especially people who live out in the rural areas. So I want to advocate on behalf of your parents and other elders. And I think it should be clear to you by now that the citizens of your county want aerial spraying to stop. It should also be clear to you that the timber industry does not need your help. The timber industry can take care of itself. It has plenty of money. It will probably see to it that ads are spread all over during election time, and we probably won't win. But we will be back again and again to fight for the right of the people to vote. It's your responsibility, truly, you know that. It's your responsibility to see to it that we at least are able to get this on the ballot. Thank you.
So go ahead and come on up to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Logan Overton. I'm a Lane County resident. I'm not quite sure which commissioner, but I was, as some other people have alluded to, the proposed ban on aerial spraying, which I'm for it going to a vote, but as other people have mentioned, it isn't quite a bipartisan issue. As infamous right-wing radio host Alex Jones has been famous for saying that they're putting chemicals in the water, I'm quoting, they're turning the friggin' frogs gay. Everybody thought he was crazy, and he certainly sounds crazy, but it had turned out that later there are a whole bunch of different medical papers citing how the chemical atrazine, a very common pesticide, is known to feminize frogs, which are very susceptible to climate change, as has been demonstrated across the spectrum in like the areas like the Amazon. And yeah, I just figured, you know, I'd bring that up, that this isn't exactly a partisan issue. It can be pretty clearly observed for anybody who cares to look into the research. And I would agree that it should be brought to a vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Logan. I think, was there somebody here that also wanted to speak, or do we get, okay, so come on up and state your name for the record.
My name is Rita Fiedler, and I live in Eugene. And yes, we are the people, but you are the people too. And as humans, I think we would all agree that we can't live without our basic needs of air and water, clean earth, as our beautiful organic food farmers have testified. This is really, really basic health from the ground up, from the air that we're breathing. It's so basic. We need to respect and honor that connection and blast through. Crickets agree.
My apologies.
We need to just, you know, do what's just such common sense. Common sense. So I appeal to you to choose health. Wealth will follow. My old grandpa from the old country, Polish man who did quite well here in the U.S., and his later years in his still thick accent would say, Rita, your health is your wealth. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anyone else that would like to address the board this morning before we close public comment? Seeing none, then we'll move on to Commissioner's response to public comment and remonstrance. Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I don't sit here doing emails I listen. But I did receive a message during the discussion today that I need to report. Mr. Mokryski, when I was in the legislature, one man was my mentor, was my person who I went to after bad days and even sought before good days. His name was Bob Jensen. Bob Jensen was a state representative from Eastern Oregon. Bob Jensen just passed away. Let me tell you about Bob Jensen and why I sought him. Bob Jensen served in the legislature as a Democrat, as an independent, and as a Republican, and was elected as all three. Bob Jensen was near and dear to my heart, and it's with great sadness, and I'm glad you're here to hear about Bob Jensen, because this is one of the greatest men ever in this state of Oregon. A couple of other things I would like to say. It's too bad that some people who spoke so passionately didn't choose to stay until the end and listen to what commissioners may have to say. I'm not going to say anything about the testimony today per se, but I noticed that Judge Hogan was in the room. He didn't sign up to speak, but he had a chance to listen to everything. The only other thing that I will say is that I have a grandbaby who turns 2 years old this month. His name is Yuali Luz Aniz Gomez Farr. He only has one grandfather. I'm it. His other grandfather died young. He was a migrant worker, a field worker, and was regularly sprayed as a field worker. And we don't know exactly what caused his cancers, his multiple cancers that killed him, but my grandbaby will never see him. So when I listen to your testimony today, it's with great interest and with great desire to seek accuracy, truth, and both in process and in scientific fact. And you can rest assured that it is something that is near and dear to my heart. And thank you for the testimony today. I would like to thank the people who took the time to respond to my request, my invitation, and come to my office to visit me this week. And just to say to Ms. Driscoll, who kind of misstated what I said, and what I said was, I'm not going to discuss the issue here, but come to my office and I'll discuss the issue with you, which I did. So slight correction from Ms. Driscoll, who I think probably has left. Yeah, she's left. So thank you, Mr. Mokryski. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank everybody for coming today to our public comment. You know, as a lawyer, I try to sift through things, so I'm going to try to summarize what I'm going to say by saying a lot of stuff was mentioned today. There was reference to the initiative, and I'm not going to address any of that right now, because I think what's really most important is the idea that there could be a legislative referral by the Lane County Board of Commissioners to the people of Lane County to vote on a aerial spraying of herbicides ordinance. Now, the Oregon Secretary of State has summarized the referral power by saying a referral is a resolution prepared by the governing body to place a question on the ballot for electors to decide. The county governing body is the County Board of Commissioners. Referrals are then filed with the officer responsible to conduct elections, usually the county clerk. So, as I said, I'm not going to talk about all the other things that were mentioned, nor the initiative, because I want to really zero in on what I think is important. And that is that 15,000 people in the county have asked to vote on something. Now, I think the board should kind of use some Solomon-like powers here and think about, well, what is fair here? Do they get to vote or not? Now, we don't really know the outcome of the legal process on the initiative, but we do know that the Board of Commissioners, at least according to the Secretary of State's website, has the authority to put things on the ballot. And, you know, not to quote Senator McCarthy of Wisconsin, but I hold in my hand a piece of paper that looks like a reasonably prepared ordinance that the board could either adopt or put on the ballot as a referral. I don't think, given all things that I'm thinking about, the board would really do that, wouldn't really adopt this ordinance. But I do think it's respectful to think that if 15,000 people want to vote on something in a county of our size, that's a really big number. And I think that we should have a really prompt decision about whether we're going to have a work session to put this on the ballot or not. I think that commissioners, in reading this and being handed this today, should have an opportunity to read it and look at it. But I think that we need to, respond one way or the other. My proposal is that we have a work session and bring in the advocates for this and bring in our own lawyer to talk about what is actually being proposed. It looks to me like a pretty straightforward ordinance that the board could repeal at any moment or amend at any moment if the voters were to approve it. So it's not exactly a done deal that anything on the ground, or should I say in the air, is going to change. But at least it's being respectful of the fact that people want to vote on this. So I would just want to thank the advocates for being responsible in trying to come up with something that doesn't have us be in the role of jumping into the judicial process, which we're not empowered to do. It's not something where we are trying to make an ordinance that we want to defend, that we want to see enacted. No, it's something where we want to give the people an opportunity to vote on an ordinance that we could change the day after it was approved. So not a big problem, in my view, of being responsible to the voters and the people that are asking to vote on this. Now, I have my own views on herbicides, and I personally went to Deadwood in 1975 to meet with opponents of the spraying, and I worked in the Carter administration that revoked the registration of 2,4,5-T. So I have my own history with pesticides and aerial application of herbicides. But to me, again, zeroing in on it, what can this board do to say we have listened to the public? I think having a work session, getting it on the ballot, seems quite reasonable to me.
Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too want to say thank you very much for those of you who came here this morning and to speak. A couple things. When the preamble was quoted this morning, the Lane County Charter, which I appreciate that, but then you have to get into actually Chapter 1. And Chapter 1, Section 2, nature and legal capacity. From the time that this charter takes effect, the county shall continue to be an agency of the state. And so right now, like, for instance, if we were to move forward on a referring a vote, it would be symbolic. It would be symbolic because we're an agency of the state. Currently, state law states that local governments are preempted. They're preempted. We cannot regulate aerial spraying. So the gentleman from Swiss Home today, let's say this happened in Lane County, aerial spraying will continue to happen in Lane County. Those of you on the border of Lane County and Lynn County, if the spray came over to Lane County, it's legal in Lynn County. It's legal in Douglas County. It's legal in Coos County. So it'd be symbolic. Now, frankly, I don't know, there's a part of me that says you could use that symbolic, use that to knock it over the heads of your state legislators and say, hey, why don't you help us out? That's the best you will get from the Lane County Board of Commissioners. There's nothing legal here that says that we can regulate aerial spraying. It'll go to court, and it'll be in court for who knows how long. So, frankly, all we have left is to refer something that would be symbolic only. And then you could take it and knock it on the heads of your, by the way, your Democrat elected state legislators and say, hey, why don't you do something to work on this at the state level, either lift the preemption or make some changes that would be from a safe standpoint. That's frankly the best that we could possibly do. And so I would agree with Commissioner Sorensen. I'm fine. I'm open to having some work session. I think you just don't half-ass just refer something. I'm sorry. You're going to need to get some information, legal folks involved in the room, and go from that perspective. But that's really what you're going to get. And I would suggest, and for the folks they were shaking your head, no, I'm sorry, but just read what it says here in the Lane County Charter. We are a subdivision of the state of Oregon. It's also because it's a subdivision, it's why I was the only commissioner who voted no on Tobacco 21. Because I thought it was more important to have a statewide approach, which, by the way, the state legislature did pass. And Tobacco 21 is now statewide and not just Lane County. Because, again, Harrisburg is what, 3 minutes from Junction City? And that's Lane County. So anyway, again, I appreciate you folks being here today. And for the record, I think I may be the only elected official who actually signed a cease and desist order on the McDougal brothers back in my first term as mayor. So, sorry, can't be bought. Thank you.
Good job. Anything? So, I'll spend a couple minutes addressing a couple items here. First, I want to address something that Lonnie brought up about our rules. And I want to make one thing clear, that those rules were adopted by the board by a unanimous vote by all 5 commissioners, and they include that the board will make every effort to create and promote an atmosphere in meetings that encourages members of the public to speak without fear of intimidation or retaliation. In an effort to promote a safe atmosphere for all, clapping, stomping of feet, whistles, yells, signs, and overt demonstration will not be permitted during board meetings. That was adopted by the board on a unanimous vote. So I was expressing the will of the board. So if you felt that I think I let several people, including Lonnie, run over their time. I did not. I was not strict on the time limits today. I think I offered everybody an opportunity to speak, and there was an atmosphere, I feel, that everybody felt they could address the board without intimidation, and that's what we strive for here. And hopefully you saw board members intently listening to your testimony today, because that's what we're here for. We're here to listen. When it comes to initiatives, and I want to appreciate James Barber's testimony today, because he did clarify a few things. And I think he was clear that there is this issue around that one piece of ORS and the separate vote test. That it's, when does it actually happen? It does, it's clear it has to happen before it's presented for a vote. That's the only thing that's really clear in the statute. And it's under litigation right now as to when that happens, how it gets interpreted. But all that came about not of actions of this board, but of actions of third-party lawsuits and decisions of judges. So, I appreciate Mr. Barber being clear about that. But I want to talk about initiative referral and home rule and county commissioners. We all were elected. In fact, both times I was elected by a majority of the voters in my district. And after our election, we took an oath of office, where we swore to uphold the laws of this state. And part of those laws recognize Lane County as a subdivision of the state, and in fact, limits us to matters that pertain to the county. We have been preempted by the state law in certain areas that we can't act. Recently, we were preempted in passing sick leave laws by recent legislation. We get placed in a situation where we have this issue where we're supposed to obey state law, and we can actually be held personally liable if we knowingly act outside of our authority. So asking us to place something on the ballot that we know violates state law puts us in a very interesting situation. Whether we've had 11,000 to 15,000 people sign petitions for something doesn't relieve us of our responsibility to act within our oath of office. So I don't have a problem having a work session about this, but I'm going to be very insistent that we get some legal interpretation of that issue, because we would have to take a vote to place it on a ballot, which means I'm taking positive action to put something on the ballot that I know is currently prohibited by state law. Does that make me liable for somebody's cost of fighting the ballot measure sometime down the road? Personally, does that put my house, my family at risk? That's what you are asking the Board of Commissioners to do. There is a method that can be done to deal with state laws that you don't like. There's a state initiative process that is well exercised in this state. And I've encouraged the folks that came to meet with me to look at exercising that state initiative process. I mean, it seems like we always have a plethora of ballot measures. And some of them are referred by the legislature, some of them are citizen initiative. That's, I think, maybe the correct place to address this issue, because that's where the power is currently being held to regulate the issue you wish to change. And we've actually been preempted by the legislature from exercising power in that area. So I appreciate everybody coming in to testify today. And I did go back and watch last month's testimony, even though I was in Hawaii at the time celebrating my 60th birthday. It's one of those things that happens only once in a while. So I did pay attention, and I am paying attention. There's issues with the other measure in conflicting with the state constitution, but I won't get into the legal parameters around community rights and how that measure is written. It's still, I'm still willing, in the future to look at that, but I really want legal counsel to do some research about whether or not there would be an issue of personal liability. Because, when you get down to Josephine County and the GMO issue, there were millions of dollars spent on that campaign. And I don't want to be the county commissioner that turns around and gets sued later on for that cost. And the amount of human capital that went into that. That's what's really, for me, the bigger issue is when we allow stuff to move forward that we know is going to get overturned by courts or has got a flaw in it. And I was really, really my initiative last summer in trying to deal with a process where we pulled back from that because we didn't want to have it look like we were aiming at certain content, was not to have people waste human capital collecting signatures on what was going to be turned down by courts and not ever get to the voters. And it would have been great if we could have prevented that. But we, again, at that time, it looked like we were trying to target specific initiatives, and we backed away from it because it is not about content. It's about having a good, clear process that everybody can understand and avoids people wasting human capital. So I hope folks appreciate those issues that are in the background here. And it has nothing to do with content of what you're trying to do. It's about trying to follow the initiative process as prescribed by state law and further defined by court cases, and also understanding that there's a conflict between what we're being asked to do and what state law is, and we're under an oath of office that we swore to uphold state law. It's very complex. I know it seems simple at times. So I just, I think, we've already heard three of us say we'd be willing to consider a work session in the future. I'll have to talk with, as chair now, I also chair the agenda committee, and we will look at where we can place it on a future agenda at some time. It takes three of us to recommend an agenda item, and I think I've heard 3 out of 5 of us say we're okay with that. So I'm going to take that as direction to the agenda committee and move it to the agenda committee. So that's really all I've got to say about that issue at this time until we have some analysis from legal counsel, until I get to see some further detail on these issues. And that, who knows, there's the court hearings coming up in early February. The whole thing, could be, the appeal could go in the other direction. It ends up on the May ballot anyway. So we'll see what happens. I'm sorry we can't take questions from the audience or further statements. We're past the public comment period. So if there's no further response to public comment or commissioner's remonstrance, we'll move on in our agenda then. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you very much.
So with that, we'll move on to emergency business. Is there any emergency business today, Mr. Mokrahysky?
No, none that I'm aware of.
Thank you. So if folks could clear the room quietly, please, so we can carry out our business. We'll hold on just a second here while they clear the room.
That's fine. 2 gavel wraps.
Yeah. I was trying to avoid that.
I've never done it.
We're starting to get out of the room now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I saw that he passed away. What a great guy. Incredible man. I love him, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know him well, but what a gentleman.
After I got beat up by Karen daily.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, we need to continue our business. If you could please. So moving on, item 6 in the agenda is the consent calendar, and these items will be considered in a single motion, and none of the items were requested to be pulled from the consent calendar at adjustments to the agenda. So if you want to see what there is in the detail behind the consent calendar, you can go online and click view materials for each item to get the details. Be handled in one motion with no discussion. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So moving on. Flip pages here. We have the item 7A, which is in the matter of appointing a new resident commissioner to the Housing and Community Services Authority for Lane County. And we have,
Good morning, Commissioners. Ella Kubok, the Public Relations Manager for HACSA, replacing Jacob Fox this morning. So today we are asking you to approve the appointment of Michelle Thurston as our new resident commissioner into the HACSA board. Last fall, we conducted outreach to our program participants and informed them of the upcoming vacancy. We received 5 applications, which is more than we usually do.
Hang on a second, Ella. Michelle, could you step outside, please? Michelle. Sorry.
Not you. Not you.
Yeah.
No, you stay.
Yeah. No.
Already in trouble.
We're going to talk about you.
Yeah.
You're going to need to.
We just need to get the door closed so we can hear you, because there's also a big jury that's waiting to get through security, too. Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead, Ella. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So last fall, we've conducted outreach to our program participants, informing them of the vacancy that was upcoming. We received 5 applications. There was a selection committee formed. The selection committee included our board chair, Shar Revis, Commissioner Pat Farr, HACSA Executive Director Jacob Fox, and myself. The selection committee reviewed all the applications and held 2 interviews. The people who were interviewed, Duanda McKinley and Michelle Thurston. We held the interviews in early December and came back to the HACSA board in late December, introducing Michelle Thurston as our recommendation to be appointed as the resident commissioner to the HACSA board. Michelle is a member of our resident advisory board, and she's an advocate for the people that we serve in our programs. She is very interested in focusing on helping us better communicate with our residents and with the people that we serve in our programs, which is one of our strategic goals for 2018. And HACSA staff and the selection committee is just very excited to put this recommendation forward in front of you today. I would like to take this opportunity as well to thank our outgoing Commissioner, Duanda McKinley, for the work that she's done in the last year and for her dedication to the people that we serve across Lane County. For those of you who are not there in December, Michelle is here in person today in the front row so that you can put the face to her name. And we're really looking forward to working with her. And at this point, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Commissioner Farr.
HACSA, what's that?
Oh, it's an amazing organization that's changing their name as of next Tuesday. And we'll definitely share it with everyone so that you can know what our new name is.
Just wanted to restate what you said, that DeWanda McKinley served admirably as a board member, not just this time, but in a previous term as board member also. And it was a difficult conversation that we had regarding the applicants. And Michelle, congratulations. You wowed the panel. So look forward to working with you.
Commissioner Layton.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other questions, I'll just go ahead and make a motion. And so, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of Order 18010913, the matter of appointing a new resident commissioner, which is Michelle Thurston, to the HACSA Board of Commissioners.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? So I'd just like to say thank you, Michelle, for being willing to serve. You know, it's great that you want to improve that communication with residents. Anything we can do to do that is really important. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, and congratulations, Michelle.
So moving on, Public Works, item 8A, which is a report of the 2017 Lane County Planning Commission's annual report. So we have Lydia and Lindsay. So.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Today I have the Lane County Planning Commission's annual report to present to you. I'm going to give you a brief summary of the report. The Lane County Planning Commission serves as a volunteer advisory committee to the board on land use matters. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 4 of their bylaws, report must be provided to the board on an annual basis that documents specific activities that the Planning Commission has abided or has had over the previous year. And so our Planning Commission is composed of 9 seats, 9 members. And in 2017, we were proud to say that for most of the year, it was actually full. It's been a while since we've been able to say that. So our commissioners, I'm going to list all of them and let you know what term they're on. They're allowed to serve 2 consecutive terms in a row. Randy Ledick is on his 2nd term, and he was chair from October 2016 to October 2017. Ryan Sisson, who is in his 2nd term. Larry Thorpe is in his 2nd term. Charles C. Kaler is in her 1st term. Gary Rose is in his 2nd term. He is also our coastal representative. He was voted as vice chair from October 2016 to October 2017, and he's currently voted in as chair of the Planning Commission. Dwight Kuhn is in his 2nd term. Robert Weeks is in his 1st term, and he has been voted vice chair this October. Steve Dignam is in his 1st term, and Jason Thiesfield served his 1st term, which expired in September, and he had chosen not to reapply. There's currently 1 vacant commission seat, and it's out published for application, and so staff is actively working on getting that position refilled. And 2017, the Planning Commission met 17 times between January and December. They held 12 work sessions, 16 public hearings, and heard testimony from at least 150 citizens during those public hearings. Some highlights of 2017 include 9 meetings specifically for applicant requested plan amendment zone change applications, 1 meeting for Lane County Transportation System Plan update, 3 meetings with the City of Eugene, 1 for their TSP update and 2 for their Envision Eugene UGB expansion project, 1 meeting with City of Springfield for a Metro Plan amendment, which was requested by Willamette Lane, and 5 meetings for the Lane Code Modernization Project, which reviewed amendments for Lane Code Chapter 13, Lane Code Chapter 14, and Lane Code Chapter 16 resource zones. They had numerous work sessions. 2 of the topics included adopting revised Lane County Planning Commission bylaws, which was also then approved by the board, and they did do a training on urban reserves. And when the 2016 annual report was presented to the board had requested staff and the Planning Commission consider 3 topics for this last year. One of them was to review the requirement for 2 members representing the coastal region, and that's was completed by revising the Planning Commission bylaws. We reduced the requirement to 1 coastal representative, and then that action allowed us to appoint Mr. Dignam to the Planning Commission so that we could have 9 full members. The second item to give consideration to was to look at adding rail or prioritizing rail in the Lane County TSP update. And last month, transportation planning staff brought the Lane County TSP before you, which I believe was adopted. And so we did bring that up, and that report or plan addresses freight railroads within Lane County's jurisdiction. And the third item was to keep track of how many people attend and participate Planning Commission meetings and hearings. And so we did capture that 150 citizens testified at the public hearings. We did not capture the amount of people that came to the meetings, but whoever signed up and spoke, we did capture those numbers. Our planning commissioners spent a significant amount of their time in this last year reviewing very thick and complex packets, deliberating on tough decisions after much public input to provide a recommendation on applications to the board. And we really want to thank them for their service because they are volunteers for Lane County. So that concludes my summary.
Thank you. Any questions for staff or discussion? Well, I'll spend a minute just to say thank you to Jason, who's going off the Planning Commission, for his work on the Planning Commission, but thank you to all the planning commissioners. Of all of our committees that we ask for volunteers from citizens on, this particular committee probably involves the most work if they're going to make good decisions. Because if you've ever looked at the documents that come with these plan amendments, and how many was it? 9 plan amendments, hundreds of pages of material that folks have to be familiar with as they make this decision. They have to learn about the criteria, understand the state laws that apply. And so it requires more than just their attendance at a planning commission hearing it requires homework in advance. And that is really, and I've watched and seen this commission in operation for years now, and they all do their homework, and they're all willing to really spend the time to make good decisions. And you look at some of the attendance on these, and you look at somebody like Gary Rose, who's driving from Florence and has managed to make 17 out of 17 meetings. That's impressive, that he's got that much commitment. And it's really interesting because Gary was one of those people that got on the Planning Commission because he kind of had a beef with Lane County. And now he's being elected to chair of the Planning Commission. He was really, getting on there because he thought that we weren't really, doing things well or right or whatever. He kind of was one of these people that had a little bit of a beef with Lane County and has, turned out to be a really effective member of the Planning Commission. So I just want to spend a moment to say thank you to all those volunteers and the hours they put in and the background reading they do. And they've actually handed us some really great recommendations. I don't think we've gone against the Planning Commission recommendation in the last several years. And for the most part, when we've followed their recommendations, it's been upheld in appeal. So it's just, I really appreciate the good work that they do in establishing, good information in their recommendations to us. So, and it also just speaks to staff as giving them good information to make decisions by also. So thank you to the land management staff and the work that you guys do in helping prepare them. So any other discussion? Any other comments on the report?
If I could just make, I'd like
ahead,
to, again, we really appreciate the work that our Planning Commission does, and I think we have an excellent group of members who have been serving us and the Board of County Commissioners well. Just speaking to volunteer hours, our Vice Chair, Robert Weeks, is here. He sat through the discussion morning, wanted to be here in case there were any questions or comments, and I just want to recognize him for his time, and again, is a really good representation of the type of people that we have who are serving on our Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being here, Robert. So with that, then we'll move on. Thank you, Lydia and Lindsay. And we'll move on to County Council. Are there any announcements from County Council? I didn't think Mr. Dingell's making his way up here.
Hi, Chair Bozovich. The only announcement that I had based on the amount of comments that we had this morning was to remind folks that the hearing on that measure, the ballot qualification measure, is February 2nd at 1:30 in Judge Rasmussen's courtroom. And it's my expectation, based on the time, the speed with which he ruled on the previous matter, that we'll have a decision well ahead of the March 15th date that Ms. Betchart needs. And that's really the only announcement I have. The only matter I'm here with you today on is, you'll recall that last year. Oh, I'm sorry.
Was there a question?
Do we have an exec session today?
No, tomorrow we have exec session.
Okay, tomorrow. Very good.
Exec session's tomorrow.
All right. Sorry.
I'm following up on, you'll recall last year this board adopted a series of what I loosely call sort of disaster/emergency measures, and a lot of those, the commitment that I made is that we'd bring those back annually. You approved a number of those on the consent calendar. The one that the board specifically wanted to bring back with an opportunity for the board to comment if they so decided was the one that involved the delegation of authority to the county administrator to spend money. So again, I don't have any specific recommendation about changing it. I think it's fine, but I did note that in the original board order that adopted those procedures, that I committed to bringing it back so that the board would have an opportunity to comment on it if they thought changes need to be made.
So any questions for council? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the order.
Okay, Chair.
Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to move approval of Order 1801-0914 in the matter of authorizing the county administrator to expend and commit county resources during an emergency until an emergency meeting of the board.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion to the motion? So I'd just like to say real quick that I appreciate this coming back before the board, and also the items that are on the consent calendar. That those items kind of stem from the year I spent as chair a few years back, where we concentrated on some of our emergency action plans and resilience planning for the county. And one of the things that's contained in this, I believe, is what constitutes how we notify folks for emergency meetings and all that, which I believe addresses some of the issues of the past that were of concern in former Commissioner Handy's complaint against the board and issues in the past around notification and what is notification, how we can notify, how we can hold meetings, how we can participate. And that's clearly spelled out in these actions. So for those that want to know, we adopted this last year. We're readopting it now. So if anyone wants to know how we call an emergency meeting and how we respond to that, it's contained in this order. So if there's no further discussion to the motion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Dingle. And we'll move on to county administration. Any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few items. We, of course, have had a busy kickoff to the new year. Had our strategic planning kickoff meeting with the board and our leadership team last week. That was great. And we launched a employee survey. I think that went out late last week or early this week from Portland State University. So that survey to employees has gone out. We'll have a subsequent survey on our strategic plan that will go out to the community here shortly. And a lot of work and meetings that will happen, as the board knows, throughout January and February as it relates to our strategic plan. I think the next work session we have scheduled is January 24th with the board. Of course, we have tomorrow our budget kickoff meeting here in Harris Hall. That's a public meeting with the board and leadership from throughout Lane County that will attend 8 a.m. here in Harris Hall, so the public is certainly welcome, as are any employees who are.
8 a.m. or 8:15?
It's a good question.
I got an email from Judy saying 8:15.
Let's take a look. It does look like it's 8:15, so thank you. But, you're welcome to show up at 8 a.m.
It was posted as 8 a.m. on the web.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so we'll start the meeting at about 8:15.
Yeah.
The board chair should be here at 8.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
7:30.
Yeah. Unlike yesterday.
So good discussion we have. Moving on, Mr. Chair.
The board chair was here on time yesterday.
So we'll have a good kickoff tomorrow on the budget. Want to provide the board, I gave you all stickers. If you haven't had a chance to vote yet, make sure that you turn in your ballot.
I'll wear it.
Quick update.
Yeah. Or maybe even
you'll wear it once you cast your vote. Quick update. We do have an election. Election day is January 23rd. This is a statewide election on Measure 101. Ballots are now in the mail. 1,012 military and out-of-country ballots were mailed by the statutory deadline of December 8th, 2017. 762 out-of-state ballots were mailed on December 26th, 2017. The remaining 244,075 ballots were mailed on January 4th. Additional ballots were are mailed daily for anyone that's currently registered and changing their address. The last statewide special election was January 2010, 8 years ago. Voter turnout was 62%. Again, we have just over 245,000 registered voters in Lane County. Driver teams will pick up ballots from the 20 drop site locations on a regular basis throughout Election Day, again, which is January 23rd. Ballot returns will be posted on the website at least every other weekday. We have received so far 6,528 ballots from the drop sites on January 8th. That's a 2.76% return. So that information will all be available. These updates will be available on our website. Also, I want to share with you.
Steve, before you move on from the election, this is a special election that we're running on behalf of the state. How much funding has the state provided Lane County, and is it covering the full cost of the election?
To my knowledge, they are not.
Okay, just wanted to kind of.
Right, this is a cost that local governments, incur for elections.
Yeah, so they chose to hold an election at a special time at the cost of local governments without providing funding. I just want to kind of make folks aware that we are depleting our scarce revenues in our general fund to support this election that was being held at a time when a lot of people were, we mailed ballots while people were on Christmas and New Year's vacation and winter break or Hanukkah, whatever they celebrated at that time period, the solstice. I just publicly want to state that I think we could have held this a little bit later in the year and also provided some funding from the state to cover our cost, and we would have been better served if it maybe been held in February.
Mr. Chair, I will say, and be happy at the next update that we have to provide the board an estimate of the cost of this special election. Of course, Cheryl Betcher, our county clerk's office, does a fantastic job of running these elections, and they seem to be happening more frequently here and with certainly much more participation. So the cost of both for mailing ballots and for administering that process only continues to grow. We've done a lot of work budgetarily to really try to plan for elections, knowing that certain election years, midterm elections, potentially certainly presidential elections, have a higher cost because voter turnout is higher. And so we've tried to budgetarily look at what we're actually doing is building a reserve so that the elections office can draw down resources in years where we anticipate a heavy turnout and heavy activity versus years that we may not have as much, as opposed to having to have these big operational swings in our budget. So I say that just as a note that we're trying to do what we can do to plan for the cost of elections, and that's a really difficult thing to do because they change, and new elections, special elections like this will come up. But your point about the impact on local taxpayers for a statewide measure like this is certainly a fair one. So another comment here I want to make, and again, I'll make a note with our Director of Operations and County Clerk to provide you an estimate of the cost of this election. Each year on Martin Luther King Day, which is January 15th, 2018, I believe that this year it actually falls on Dr. King's birthday, which is a really neat thing. Each year on Martin Luther King Day, for those of you that are able to attend the event, the NAACP's Martin Luther King Day event at the Shed Auditorium, the City of Eugene Human Rights Commission recognizes an individual for their contribution in the area of human rights and race relations. The City of Eugene looks for individuals who demonstrate leadership in making the Eugene community more inclusive and supportive for communities of color. The award will be presented on Martin Luther King Day by the City of Eugene Human Rights Commission during the NAACP's event at the Shed Institute, directly following the annual MLK Junior Day March. The list of past recipients includes community greats that you all recognize: Bobby Green, George Russell, Mary Spildy, Dan Bryant, and Judge Cindy Carlson. This year, our own Mo Young has been nominated, not only nominated, but is going to be recognized with this incredible award.
Awesome.
I can't think of anybody who's more deserving of this award in the past year than Mo Young, given the incredible work that has happened in Lane County and in our community around equity, access, and inclusion work. So I just found out about this morning, so this is breaking news, and we're really, we just could not be more proud of Mo as an individual, as a professional, and representing the great work that Lane County does here. So please, when you see Mo, congratulate her and put on your calendar, if you're available on Monday, January 15th, this coming Monday, at the Shed Institute, to recognize Mo for great contributions to our organization and community.
Time that is?
Sorry?
Time?
The time I will get for you. I know it's in the morning. I think it's around 10 or 11 a.m. So we'll get that by the end of the meeting here. I'll make sure that we have that.
Thank you.
I want to let the board know that I've joined the United Way Board. You may have seen that in the paper this weekend. I was asked to serve on the United Way Board, so I'll be doing that over the course of the next few years. So looking forward to contributing towards that outstanding community organization. And then finally, we've been asked to present, Mike Coles, our assessor, has asked us to present at the annual Osaka conference in Sun River regarding the recent labor negotiation work that Lane County has been involved in. The statewide assessors and tax collectors are interested in hearing from Lane County's perspective, given all of the bargaining unit negotiations that we've been involved with. So Inga Wood and Andrea Nagels and I will be presenting to the statewide organization on that.
That's at the Sun River Conference in Osaka.
Osaka is and I don't have it's the Oregon State Association of Assessors and Tax Collectors, yeah. Which I believe Mike Coles, I know Mike Coles is on the board, he may be the president. I think he's the president this year, and a great leader statewide there, so look forward to that. Thank you, that's all I have.
Any other questions for the administrator? If not, then we'll move on to item 11, Commissioner's Business. Item 10B was removed because the folks from BLM had an emergency come up and could not make it. And we're very apologetic about not being here. Probably a good thing because we've been crunched for time with them this morning. So Commissioner's Business, any announcements? Commissioner Farr.
I'll be very brief because I know Commissioner Sorensen needs to leave promptly at 10 till 12, and I should leave then or prior. Clackamas County is doing a great job with veterans housing. They have patterned their work on some of the work that's been done here in Lane County. And I wanted to report, I got the Transitional Shelter Communities pilot project has been started in Clackamas County on county land. It's a pilot project for up to 30 homeless veterans on county-owned land. Had a chance to visit it. Commissioner Savas has been one of the main instigators of it, although Commissioner Schrader has been deeply involved. And it's pretty impressive what they're doing up there. They're beginning to cause a groundswell throughout counties in Oregon to provide shelter, in particular for homeless veterans. But that type of shelter is not restricted to veterans, ultimately. So it's good work that's being done by Clackamas County, and I'm very, very proud I'm proud to have visited. I shouldn't have pride in that, should I? But I am. The other thing is, I think we all got a letter from Chris Edwards requesting mill race improvements, a letter on mill race improvements. I've told him I'll sign one individually, but potentially we could look at that as an agenda item.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up on an agenda item, so I'm good with that being as an agenda team request to get the board to approve that letter.
Then I'll very briefly just read a statement. Recently, I attended the graduation of the outside in class inside the state penitentiary. Most of the penitentiary inmates who participated were serving very long sentences, including this a statement made by one of those inmates who had served 17 years and will be there for 17 more years, and coincidentally his son was turning 17 that week. This is a pretty lengthy sentence that he received, but what he stated is that growing up, I never would have thought to think about the damage that I've caused to the people I've hurt and how they'll have to live their lives with so much trauma caused by my hands. On a different note, I'd like to wish each and every one of you a great life, and may you all help make this world a better place, and if possible, help those like me who ain't completely and utterly lost. Help us to see for the humans that we are and not the monsters portrayed on TV and in the media. And what it underscored to me is that, we have a punishment society, and certainly people are responsible for their acts. And what this man did, he confided in me what it was that he did, and certainly he needed to receive some form of retribution for that. But sometimes I wonder, he's been in 17 years. He's got 17 more years to go. His son's 17. All coincidental. However, it's something that we need to look at is, what are we doing the right thing? I'm not judging, I'm not answering that question at this point in time, but at some point as a society, and it certainly doesn't end here at the County Commission, potentially doesn't even begin here at the County Commission, it's something that we need to consider. After spending time with 16 inmates, one of whom received a pre-Measure 11 juvenile sentence that was life imprisonment without chance of parole. Pre-Measure 11. Measure 11 doesn't allow that. He's there forever. Went in before he was 18, is there forever with no chance of parole. I don't know. Ask yourself, is there something amiss there? Thank you.
So any other announcements? Commissioner Williams.
Just a couple of comments. First of all, I congratulate former Chair Farr on his State of the County address yesterday. Certainly was well received by all who heard the message. Well, there's generally an exception somewhere out there.
But, or one of the guys.
It didn't. That individual did not deflect your comments or presentation. So I also had the opportunity to go to the State of the City address in Springfield and hear Mayor Lundberg, and it is very, very inspiring to see a community that I've watched for decades continue to transform into a very, very vibrant community. We also have one of our fellows up here that has a great hand in that transformation and guidance in the not too distant past. I also had the opportunity, and I know there were other commissioners at the State of the City address for Eugene, and there again a good message of compassion and inclusiveness. And last night I had the great pleasure of visiting with the folks in Cottage Grove for their State of the City address. And again, an incredibly inspiring message of communities in recovery. We had some very difficult times for the last decade or two or three, if you want to go back that far, but certainly the Great Recession was quite damaging to a lot of communities, and it's wonderful to see those communities rebound. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak a little bit about Oak Ridge and Cresswell as well. They all are doing incredible work in their communities, and they should be recognized for that. So one last parting comment. At the Cottage Grove message last night, there was the retirement of Torque. Torque was a canine unit, wonderful animal, absolutely beautiful. You can find photos on my Facebook page, but a very emotional send-off to retirement for this outstanding officer of the law in every sense of the word. So my thoughts and good wishes to Torque as he finds that shade tree and the big bone, and with that I thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? So I just want to note that yesterday I got the pleasure, sitting as vice chair of the Three Rivers Foundation, to look at our annual awarding of grants to various nonprofits up and down the coast where they serve. And it's always a tough thing. We had over 150 applications to review, and we only give out about 20 grants in the grant cycle. I will note that 2 of the grants we gave out are to purchase canine dogs, one for the city of Bandon, one for Coos County. We're not fully funding the cost of a canine, but at least part of it. And it's just one of those great pleasures to look at all the great work being done by nonprofits, in southwestern Oregon is just amazing, and one of the most fun things I get to do. Also coming up this week is the El Rapa Board of Directors meeting on Thursday, and with the recent audit release from the state, it's interesting sometimes, and I was probably one of their harshest critics at one point, and now I'm a cheerleader for them because I understand they actually save local governments money by having a local air protection authority. But with the announcement that 43% of the large emitters in Oregon under DEQ permitting are operating with an expired permit, that is not the case in Lane County, because we do have a local Air Protection Authority, and they are up to date with their permitting and renewal process for the Title V permits here. So you're not seeing that same thing in Lane County because we have LRAPA. We are protected, and people have their permits up to date. So a little juxtaposition there between people have talked about why don't we just become part of DEQ. That's one of the reasons that local agency can be responsive and keep us up to date on our permitting. So with that, we are down to agenda team requests. And I just want to real quick get head nods because it was just Pat and I that said this, and I want to make sure everybody's in support of having it come back on a board meeting, possibly under consent calendar, the letter of support for the mill race project at U of O. So I'm seeing more than 3 head nods. I just want to clarify that for Diana. She likes to see that. If there's no other agenda team requests, will be a review of assignments.
I just have.
Excuse me. I just wanted to clarify that the agenda request about the referral was to have a work session about the referral.
Yeah, and I believe we saw at least 3 support just in our remonstrance, and I registered that in my comments. So we'll reconfirm that here. That's one of the assignments.
That's what I had as the assignment was a work session on the referral
and the letter of support.
And the letter of support. Yeah.
Great. Any other assignments that we missed? Works. So executive session will be held tomorrow. There's no other business for the board. With that, then we will adjourn and reconvene tomorrow at 8:15, and it'll be here in Harris Hall, which is be unusual. So we are adjourned.